Hi, Julie. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Ellen.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm a current faculty member of Esteem, but I did not have the privilege of being here when you were here. I came after you arrived on our Notre Dame campus. So can you just start off by telling me a little bit about why did you choose to come to Esteem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I graduated Esteem in 2020, and I had worked in the industry for about 2 years. I was a pharmaceutical bench chemist. I realized pretty quickly that that's not what I wanted for my career. So I started looking around, and I knew I was either going to go get a master's degree in business, or maybe further my research skills. Wasn't really sure which direction I wanted to go in, and as I was searching around, I found the Esteem program, which seemed to be the perfect marriage of the business and the sciences. Loved that it was 11 months as well. So came up, visited the campus. I have a lot of family ties to Notre Dame as well, so that was definitely a draw, and knew after that first visit that I really wanted to attend the program.
Okay. So you call it a marriage between, science and business. You came into the program with quite a bit of science skills. Teach us a little bit about your experience on the business side. What did you learn from the program, and kind of how did it make you look at things differently?
Yeah, definitely. So I had taken some business courses in college, so I had a very small amount of experience there, but really when I came to Esteem, I didn't have very much interest in the entrepreneurship side. I viewed it as a way, as an alternate to an MBA. So I thought I would come to the program, I would end up in marketing or business analytics and pharmaceuticals, something like that. But my capstone project was with a university professor, and it was just him and I trying to figure out how to commercialize a technology. And after going through the year of learning all the business fundamentals and how to apply that to such a small company that you can iterate and learn and change so quickly, I knew pretty quickly I was going to end up in a similar industry, going towards the startup side, going to the entrepreneurship side versus another large company.
So that's a great point. A lot of our students come here, they don't know what's next. Maybe I always give the example of a chemistry major in a lab, and I found out I didn't like that, which you've kind of alluded to. Or maybe I was a computer science major. I don't want to be the coder anymore. I want to kind of be the manager of the group. And in order to become the manager of the group, you have to understand both sides. You have to understand the business side enough that you can talk intelligently and know if your company's making money or not. So we sprinkle in a lot of different business classes to help do that. So tell me a little bit about then once you came to Esteem, did you have a favorite class that you enjoyed the most? Maybe you don't have one, but
I think I would say probably some of the marketing courses were really fun. We did some of the exercise of everyone had to figure out how to sell bicycles and come up with your own strategy of, are you going to sell high-end bicycles? Are you going to sell children's bicycles? And it was a class that really exemplified how Esteem works, of you learn some basic principles about an area, and then you apply it in the way that you see fit. And I think I had the worst strategy of how to sell bicycles out of anyone. I came in dead last, but you got to play in the sandbox and understand how things worked, and that really changed my point of view of how you learn. That it's, you can fail, you can use that to learn more and understand how you can change things in the future, and then there's another chance typically to figure out how to apply that in a different way and learn some more.
Yeah. One of our mottos is, some people teach entrepreneurship, we do entrepreneurship. So go back to your capstone experience a little bit more. It was a faculty idea. You're wearing a lot of different hats. Every week was probably different. But tell me about your hands-on experience and what you got from your capstone.
Yeah, definitely. So my capstone project was with Dr. David Boone. It was called Lumen Bio, and it was about trying to commercialize a technology that could be used for weight loss, first in companion animals, and then potentially down the road for humans. So during that, it was a really early stage research, and so I immediately got to jump in, understand what the research was, which was fun as a previous biology major. There was one point I was working with a lab to contract chickens to experiment with.
Oh, wow.
Because the technology was to change a protein in eggs and then use the eggs for pet food. So while some of my classmates, were working with corporations and big partners and doing research, I was on the phone trying to find chickens to use for that research, which was really, really cool. For hands-on, one of the great things about Esteem was doing McCloskey and then all of the pitch competitions that come to campus. So I was able to bring in, I think like $20,000 to $30,000 in funding for Lumen Bio through Elevate Ventures, through some of the McCloskey stuff, and just understand how to pitch an idea quickly, how to understand it so deeply that you can ask or answer the questions that people are asking, and just think about the ways to drive forward a business, even when it was in that 11-month window.
Great. We are fortunate to have an interdisciplinary program here on campus, which means we get the best faculty from the College of Engineering, the best faculty from the College of Science, and the best faculty from the Mendoza College of Business. Did you feel like you had a good range of different professors teaching you different things from those different backgrounds?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think it's really important for Esteem. We're not just in Innovation Park. We are across campus. We're taking part in different things. A lot of my classmates were in different clubs or sports or things like that. So getting that exposure to all the different professors, again, goes into that different line of thinking. I know we had some people come in who weren't professors, but they were experts in consulting or other verticals that help the students understand what it looks like to move into some people went into academia, some people are in industry, some people are in research, medical school, all over. So you get to see what life looks like for a lot of different avenues while in the program.
Yeah. And you mentioned that path afterwards and how your fellow classmates went to different mini industries. I think that's an important part of Esteem today still. Like within an 11-month program, we throw a lot of topics at you, and we don't expect you to be like, oh, that's the perfect job for me, right? So we sprinkle in a lot of different subjects so that you're trying different things. So you mentioned that you were in a lab before you came to Esteem, and you realized maybe that's not what I want to do for life. So as you were approaching the end of the program, in counseling with your advisor, and I know David Murphy helped you with this decision, how did you decide what you were going to do after Esteem?
I knew that I wanted to move back to Indianapolis, so that was a big part as well. So looking at different companies and opportunities there, I had learned about High Alpha. Actually, I lived in Indianapolis before, but we took a field trip down to Indianapolis and went to the High Alpha offices, and I had never heard about it. I worked in a lab, not a lot of exposure to the venture capital world or venture studios, and I just thought what they were doing was really cool. And that speaks to the network of Notre Dame, that we both had the opportunity to have that field trip. And months later, I saw a job opportunity come up for High Alpha Innovation, which is one of the companies that High Alpha started, and was able to get an introduction to that CEO and just continue to talk to that company until I eventually was pulled on board there.
Great. So yes, we still take trips. Because we believe in getting out and seeing the real world. So we still take a day trip to Indy, a day trip to Chicago, and we still take a week-long trip to Silicon Valley. So Julie, you talked about you kind of had been to visit High Alpha through the class trip, and you saw a job that was posted, and you were kind of inquisitive. Is this something I would like to do? I'm not really sure my career path would be. So how did you take that job description? How did you utilize the Notre Dame network to speak with the CEO to decide if that's really a track you wanted to do in your future?
Yeah, definitely. So when I saw the job posting come up, what High Alpha Innovation does is we work with corporate partners, universities, and governments to help start new startup companies. So we talk to a bunch of people, understand deeply what a problem is, and then come up with an idea for a startup. And if they like it, then we get funding and we create the startup and push it into the world. So that's essentially what the job application listed. And I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do after Esteem. And what I thought was really cool was seeing that this job was a mix of consulting, a mix of corporate partnership, and a mix of entrepreneurship, which all of those things are areas that I was exposed to in Esteem. I was never super interested in going into consulting, but I attended the sessions where Esteem faculty talked about what consulting was, how to go through all of those interview processes. Same with corporate partners. We got a lot of exposure of people coming in, of alumni panels, and understanding what it looks like to work for a large corporation. And then, as I mentioned, I worked with a startup during my capstone. So this was really an opportunity to combine everything that I was exposed to within Esteem and do it professionally and go out and do it at a startup company itself. So once I saw that, I immediately knew I wanted to apply to it. So I spoke with John Henry, knew that he had some connections with our CEO, Elliot, and was able to get an introduction there. Actually, I did not get hired the first time for that job interview. They hired someone a little bit more senior than what my experience was. But I just stayed in touch with our CEO, emailed him every couple months, which is another thing Esteem taught, is how to get a hold of people, how to cold call, and pitch yourself. So I kept doing that, and eventually they were ready to bring on some more people and was able to join the company.
That's wonderful. So you mentioned some talents that you learned from the STEAM program. I just went to a career fair on campus last week, and I was walking out at the end of the night with a current Esteem student. And I was like, hey, how's it going? Did you have a good time tonight? And he goes, oh, it's so much better. He said, I was a Notre Dame undergraduate. I went to all these career fairs the last 4 years and never felt as powerful and confident as I did tonight, meaning he had learned the skill sets of everything you just said. He learned how to talk about Esteem in a 2 to 3 minute story and how it's different than an MBA. He learned how to confidence. He had this breadth of experiences, right, that helped him. So you just talked about all the things you have to do for high alpha innovation today is a sprinkling of a lot of the things you learned at Esteem. So are there any aha moments? Sometimes I'll get a call from alumni. Thomas is one of them. Thomas Penny was also a Notre Dame undergrad, and he'll send me an email. He goes, Ellen, they've put me on an innovation team for Merman, and I pulled out my slides from this class, and I was able to use them. So did you have any aha moments that when you first started up with high alpha innovation that you're like, I learned that in class, I can do this?
Yeah. I think it's not specifically something I learned in a class at Esteem, but what Esteem teaches people how to do is learn. You see all of your classmates, everyone's taking the same classes, but they're applying those learnings to like 50 different capstone projects. So it's really an opportunity where you say, hey, here's the basics, here's what you need to know. Now you need to take that and apply it to your own problem and to your own capstone project. And that's a really, really good way to learn because it's the opportunity to figure out how you think and how you can go, it's teaching a man to fish versus giving the fish.
Right.
So I think that was a really exciting thing for me to realize is that Esteem had actually changed the way I take in information, changed the way I view learning, and that is something I still use every day in my current position.
Sometimes students will ask me, like, what are employees looking for? And if I have to give you a one-sentence answer, my answer is usually they're looking for learners who know how to solve problems creatively, right? Yeah. So in your job today, are you having to solve problems using different creative skill sets?
Yeah, definitely. So in my work, I switch between corporate partners about every 4 months. So every 4 months, I'm learning a brand new industry. I'm learning a problem that's really specific to the partner I'm working with, and I go out and I talk to at least dozens of people during that 4 months to really understand what those problems are. And one of the other things that Esteem teaches is the problem is usually not the surface level thing. Keep asking why, keep understanding, dig deeper, and that's something I do a lot is even when working in those partnerships, you might have someone come and say, this is our problem. And then you talk to a bunch of people and you say, actually, I think this is your problem. And you help everyone understand what's going on and how to view that in a little bit of a different light and go about it in a more creative way when you're finding a solution.
That's great. That's great that you get to change industries every 4 months because then you're continuing to get your skill sets up to speed in new industries. That's great. We talk a lot about the power of the Irish network here. How did the skill sets that we taught you and the people we put you in touch with enable you to have confidence to do networking, to reach out for people? And has it kind of helped you in a role that you're doing today, right? Have you been able to reach back to a classmate? Have you been able to reach back to someone who's in that industry and said, hey, remember me? I'm from Notre Dame and you're from Notre Dame. Tell me a little bit about the power of the Notre Dame network and how that's helped you in your career.
Yeah. First of all, the Notre Dame network is one of the big reasons I chose Esteem. Yeah. I had heard about that for a long time, knowing that you can call someone up and you probably not get on the phone with them in normal circumstances, but you can as a Notre Dame alumna. So one of the really cool parts of Esteem is that all of the students do 50 or more interviews to help fully understand their capstone project. And to get 50 interviews, that means you've probably emailed hundreds of people. So for one, you get used to either hearing no or hearing nothing back, and that's not a deterrent once you've heard that so many times. And two is just when you get the opportunity to get on the phone with someone, you want to make a good impression. So Esteem really taught us how to prepare for those conversations, how to make sure we were using other people's time really valuably. And then the other thing is, the whole time that I was in Esteem, it was really impressed upon us the importance of that network. So now that I'm an alumni, I do the same thing when people reach out to me and want to understand more. We often say that when you're a student, those words, I'm a student, can be really helpful to getting into interviews anyway. Then when you say, I'm a student at Notre Dame, that's even more helpful. So after I've graduated, I've dropped that I'm a student, say, hey, I went to Notre Dame, and that still brings in a lot of people. I can reach out on LinkedIn, I can send cold emails, and can get a better response rate than without that.
You gave me chill bumps because I do know that you have helped students and that you've given back to current students that we have today. So thank you for doing that.
Of course.
So
Love
it. One of my favorite mottos here is we fix things that matter. So tell me a little bit about that motto. What did you think about that motto before you got here? Maybe what that meant. And how is it still part of you, Julie, today, that you want to fix things that matter?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when looking at different grad programs, seeing the fix things that matter logo or motto is really important, because you understand, like, hey, I'm going somewhere that has heart to it. It's a program that cares about its students, it cares about the world, and that's something that I want to be part of. Post Esteem, one of my favorite programs I've worked on was with the University of North Carolina, where the focus of the program was understanding what tools, what resources can help with the opioid epidemic. So I spent 4 months learning from a lot of people, from CBOs to physicians to people with lived experience, about how maybe a startup could help and could alleviate some of alleviate what's come of the opioid epidemic. And we were able to pitch 2 concepts. What's really cool is that program, we had a little bit more flexibility. Typically we're saying, hey, we need something that is venture backable, that can bring funding in. And this one had more flexibility, that both High Alpha Innovation and the University of North Carolina Eshelman Center said, we just want to come up with something that could be helpful. And so one of our companies named Goldie works with EMTs in different areas to help them understand how to help people who have just experienced an overdose and how to get them into the appropriate line of care. So it's really cool to have seen that program come into fruition, to have pitched it, and now Goldie is out in the world and helping people today. So that's really cool to see.
Goosebumps again. I will say that when we came to Indy, we came to see you when we went to High Alpha Innovation, and I asked you to do a reverse pitch for us. We said, the students always want to know what is a great way to pitch my passion, my McCloskey, my side gig. And you said, I've got the perfect company that we can pitch. So you did a reverse pitch to us as if we were the investors. And I remember tears that day. I remember it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop because the way that you presented, the way that you had a passion, the way that you cared about fixing things that matter was so evident that day. And I'm guessing you couldn't have done that with your lab work before you went to Esteem.
Yeah.
So how did that help you in garnishing the right message at the right time to make people want to invest in your companies?
I think it's really all about storytelling, which, like I said, I learned a lot about within Esteem in pitching Lumen Bio. It's particularly with that company is how can you make people really understand how can you let people understand the heart of the problem and step into the shoes of someone experiencing this for themselves? So being able to learn how to tell that story and just how to be human when speaking about it was a really great way to deliver that message.
So in your discovery of that particular project, I'm sure you had to call people who were had negative effects of opioids in their lives and maybe got addicted or couldn't see a way out without the medication. And just talking to the people that really lived through it is really what helps you share that story for us. The majority of the people in the room probably don't understand what it is like to be addicted to opioids, but you actually did all the research and you spoke as if you were the person that was addicted to those opioids. And that was really important to us to see that humanness in you. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about your reason for Notre Dame. This experience cost you a lot of money, right? To come to the University of Notre Dame is not cheap anymore. So what was the ROI? Do you think it was worth it? Do you think, I could have done this job at High Alpha without my stop at Esteem? Or how valuable was paying for that 11-month experience, and how is it helping you be a better employee?
Yeah, I think it was definitely worth it. I don't think I would have my current position without having attended Esteem. Like I said, I hadn't even heard of High Alpha prior to coming to program. I had to leave Indianapolis to learn about a great company in Indianapolis. Yeah, so I think that was really helpful. And I knew with Esteem being an 11-month program, that was probably going to be the fastest way for me to change my career trajectory. So I realized I did not want to work in the technical side of the sciences, and wasn't sure what my next step was. And MBAs are longer, cost more. And the Esteem program, I thought, really brought in both sides of scientific thinking, valuing my past still as someone in STEM, but also allowing me to turn and work more on the business side. So I think it was a really great way to change the direction that I was going to be working in the future.
Great. I'm glad it happened for you.
Yeah, me too.
Let's talk about being a female in the STEM world, right? You're in the minority, particularly in the females versus males category. Tell me a little bit about your undergrad experience being a female in STEM and then being a female in STEM and Esteem.
Yeah, I would say for both, I've always had a wonderful cohort of female friends. I had lived in the dorms for 2 years in my undergrad, so had a really, really tight network of people. We were in a science dorm, so met a lot of people that way. Still have a lot of those friends today. We've all ended up in different industries, so it's cool to see those who have gone on to be physicians. Some, like me, are totally out of the sciences, and others are doing that lab work or doing other forms of healthcare and research. So great to have a lot of people to understand what my previous experience was like and are still doing some of that work. And then at Esteem, same thing. Our class was about 50-50, male to female. So it was really cool to see all of these people coming in together from all of these different backgrounds. And today, still really great friends with a lot of the women I went to Esteem with.
You said that you're still friends with people that you went to Esteem with. Tell me about life after Esteem. The way Esteem's set up, you take a lot of classes together, so you're with each other for a lot of those 11 months. You take a lot of similar classes. How did your relationships form then within Esteem, and then how do you use those relationships after you leave the Esteem program?
Yeah, I would say with Esteem being a shorter program, the amount of time that you get to spend together is quite large. So it was really fun to really be fully immersed during those 11 months. I lived in a house with 3 other girls, so that was really fun, as well as on a street with 3 or 4 houses, ended up with Esteem students. So spent a lot of that time, whether it's studying late at night or coming into classes, coming into some of the extracurriculars of panels and speakers coming in, to make sure you're taking advantage of that time and also having a lot of fun along the way.
Good. One of the things we've changed since you've been here is that we bring the students in, and the very first week we make them do an actual Shark Tank event. So they show up the first day on campus expecting to hear, this is the history of Father Doran and a tour of the University of Notre Dame. And we quickly tell them you have 10 minutes to think of a company. And they're like, wait, what? When is the tour of Notre Dame happening? Right? So we put them in this environment for 3 days, Wednesday through Friday, where you form a company and you find people that, want to be on your company. You find students that have different skill sets than yours, right? And then by Friday, you're pitching the company, right? Which is what you do for your job for High Alpha. Mm-hmm. So being able to be quick on your feet is part of that experience. So how about your education Esteem? Being quick on your feet allows you to be such a successful woman today.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned within Esteem is, again, it's okay to be wrong, mm-hmm. but you need to move forward. Mm-hmm. So pick a hypothesis, test it, and keep moving. It's probably wrong, honestly. Mm-hmm. It's not just okay if it's wrong, but it probably is wrong. But it's getting you steps closer to the right answer. So, in those 3-day turnarounds and those really quick activities, it shows you that, you can find the right team and you'll find the right answer eventually. Mm-hmm. And it's just fine if it's not the right answer the first time around.
Mm-hmm. Or the second or the third or the 10th.
Or the 10th or the 20th.
So David Murphy made a change in July. This is our 4th class, but all of the faculty changed. So Herman, Neil, and I all are here, and we all have industry knowledge, not academic knowledge. But I teach the students, when I launched a product into market, you didn't know until it was in the market for at least 6 months that we're successful. Mm-hmm. And so all the business financials and the fuzziness and the supply chain issues and the colors and the SKU, all the things you're going to do, you're guesstimating, and you don't know until it goes into store. So for example, I did a cordless suite for KitchenAid small appliances, and we got them in placement into retailers. And you have to put the product out there. You got to make sure the inventory ships out there. You need to sell it at regular price to see if it moves at regular price, and then you need to put it on a discount to see how much money do you still make when it's on this, and then you find out 6 months later if it's successful. Explain that to me in High Alpha Innovation terms, please. How do you know if what you've done at High Alpha Innovation is successful or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is really relevant to our work. My side of the business, we call it the build team. So it's kind of the consulting arm. We're working with corporate partners, and we go from problem to startup concept idea. And so when I end the bulk of my work, we have an idea for a company, we've got a bunch of research, and we have a pretty good reason to believe that it's correct. But the next step is, after we get funding, we hire a CEO for the startup, and they take everything. We say, this is all a suggestion, but that CEO is going to have a lot more experience, and they're going to spend a lot more time with it. So, we've had startups that have failed. We have some that are pretty much the same company that we pitched during Sprint Week, and we have some that are totally different. Those CEOs come in and they're talking to a lot more people, they're continuing to push forward, and most importantly, they're actually onboarding customers. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be the ones who really push the company forward. And then we have time to understand and speak to those founders, speak to the CEOs, speak to the people within High Alpha Innovation that work really closely with our founders to understand where we were right, where we were wrong. If we do something like this again, what learnings can we bring into it?
Yeah.
So it's really, sometimes it takes that 6 months, sometimes it's a year, but to be able to have that information looping back within the company is really neat to see.
Mm-hmm. I describe Esteem as Shark Tank for graduate students. It sounds like you're still doing Shark Tank.
Yeah.
For business people, right?
Yeah.
Good, great, okay. All right, Julie, you talked about your background, chemistry major, working in a lab, not so sure about Esteem and what you want to do with your life. And so today, do you have the opportunity to work with both startups and corporate partners, both?
Yeah, we do. So the startups that I work with are primarily the ones that we have started ourselves. Mm-hmm. So working with those corporate partners is really cool because you get to understand more about how corporations think, how they view problems. A lot of these corporates that we work with are the best in the world at what they do. So you get a little taste of how they think about their business, how they think about change in the world, and also, what their core beliefs are of what the world should be like. So I think that's a really interesting way to learn a lot, both in ways that people think and what problems exist in the world. And then for our startups, we get to see these amazing founders that come in. That's really the highlight of the work for me, is seeing that, we've come up with a problem and a solution in 4 months, that someone is going to quit their job and join one of our startups to lead. So that's really the true test to say, hey, like, I think we're onto something, because this person is going to fundamentally change their life to come on board with what we've created. So I think that's a really cool part too.
Good. So in working with your corporate partners, is there something that you could talk about how you take an idea from a small idea from your team to scale it up for a large corporation?
Yeah, so how we work is that, we start with a theme for a program, and so they'll say, hey, we think this is a problem, or we really want to understand how AI is going to change our company, is a really popular one right now.
Yeah, of course.
So we take that information, we understand where they're coming from, and then we go out and we do our own research, and we're working collaboratively with the corporate partner or the university or government entity to understand how they think about it, but also how everyone else in the industry is thinking about it. It can't just be in a closed box. Esteem was that's another skill from the program, that you have to understand a lot of different viewpoints to understand what the problem is. So once we feel like we've got a pretty good grasp on that, we can take it, ideate more, or start to understand what the solution could look like, typically a software solution. And again, take that and shop it around to a bunch of different people to understand if they think it is a compelling solution. I love hearing no during those times.
Yes.
No is as helpful as
Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely.
So you get to take that and scale it out to one corporation or partner's views, and make sure it is industry-wide and usable by a lot of different people.
I get to pick a class that I want to teach every semester. So I'm teaching launching physical products, right? So our students have great ideas. They don't know if they'll work in store or not, right? And so I teach the class. And so this weekend I was in Indy with real stores, not like the little town I live at in Michigan, but so I was doing a lot of pictures of like, what does the makeup aisle at Target look like? One of my students is working on a makeup product, and it's coming from Whirlpool Corporation for 30 years, where we're very slow, we're very deliberate. We test ad nauseum our claims. As I'm going through Target, on Saturday, I'm taking pictures of this and this and this and this. And I'm like, you can't say that. Where's the little asterisk that says, based on testing this many units, that using applying this makeup? Like, one of them was sun-kissed in 2 minutes or less. And I was like, and so I will use that in my class this week. How do you prove sun-kissed in less than 2 minutes? And what does that look like for a major corporation? Who's going to take the time to validate it? You always have to have the spec that says that it can be tested in any environment, that you can be sun-kissed in 2 minutes. But there is a process to that maybe the entrepreneurs might just kind of skip and hope no one asks them how you get sun-kissed in 2 minutes. But a major corporation would want all of the backup and the data and the testing to validate that. So I kind of slow them down at the first day of class, and I keep telling them, like, every startup eventually sells to a non-startup. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, eventually you're going to work on a product that's going to go on Amazon. And I have a 90-some page spec on the box you must use at Amazon, right? So for KitchenAid small appliances, I made this beautiful, lovely box, right? That Amazon's going to say, I will just throw that away because I'm going to put it in a brown box. So knowing those specs up front and planning for your startup to go big helps you do all the claims and the testing and all the stuff up front. So I come from the corporate background. It sometimes drives our entrepreneurs crazy. Like, let's just put it up there and see what happens. So I was like, no, large corporations can't do that.
That's exactly when we're doing our pitches during Sprint Week of, whether it's a business model or a claim you're making for how the product is going to work. A lot of the times in the audience, someone's going to raise their hand and say, how did you get to that unit cost? What is the ROI? Why did you say that about pricing?
Yes.
And you can't just sneak it in.
No.
You've got to know the answer to it.
Yes.
So when working with those corporations, they want to know how you've done your research and what exactly is a hypothesis and what is, maybe proven to be more true.
Right, the trade-off decision is important. So I tell the students, let's say you're going to make a cooler, right? A big cooler that you're going to take to the Michigan beaches over the weekend. And you can make that cooler, make all of your beverages stay cold for a long time. You can add a boom box to the top of it that gives you the best speakers ever on any cooler. You can add very big, large wheels that helps you get across the sand. But as you add and add and add those features, if your consumer wants you to solve all of those problems for them, then the cooler's going to be $1,000 and you'll never sell one of them. Yeah. So it's a trade-off, understanding which is the most important thing. Is it the wheels in the sand? Is it the boom box? Is it keeping beverages cold? And as product designers, we have to just say we can't fix everyone's problems. Yeah. Whose problems should we fix, right? And then how do we do have those trade-offs so that the product is not so expensive it will never be purchased by anyone. So
we say
you deal with that a lot.
Often, if you're solving for everyone, you're solving for no one. So
exactly.
who are you speaking to? And that pitch is important.
Julie, thank you so much for your time today. It's an honor to have you sitting in that seat because you have taken the benefits of Esteem and you went out and you're fixing things that matter. And we love that you took what you learned here and you're applying that into your daily job. I often tell students at the beginning of the year that these are going to be your best friends for life. They don't believe me on day one, but it's true because we start Esteem in the summer, so there's not a lot of people on campus, so you are forced to be together a lot during the summer. But what I've seen in my 4 years here is that you are set up for friends for life who are your confidants, who are going to maybe hire you later on, that are going to teach you a new skill set. And so I thank you. You are the epitome of what Esteem can do for a candidate who comes in, wants to make a career change, not really sure what you want to do next, took advantage of all the resources that were here that we gave you in Esteem, and you are such a successful businesswoman because of it. So thank you for being a great Esteem alumni. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.